Hello friends, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to show you the disassembly process of an HK SEF trigger pack. The first thing we need to do is get the hammer either on the trigger sear or all the way forward. With the hammer in the rearmost position, you're not able to remove the selector. What we'll do, with a little bit of thumb pressure on the hammer, we're going to push the release lever. That allows the hammer to rest on the trigger sear. We could remove the selector, but in one of the later portions we want the hammer all the way forward, and with it assembled it's a little easier to do it now. So we'll have a little thumb pressure on the hammer, pull the trigger, and then slowly allow the hammer to go forward. We then move our selector to the 12 o'clock position, and it comes right out. Depending on how dirty or the fit is between your trigger pack and your trigger housing, it could be a little tricky to remove. Some are easy, some are a little bit of a struggle. The first thing we want to do is remove the hammer spring and the hammer shank assembly. If you buy the Annie's Arms hammer catch tool, it comes with this little pin. We can take the small end of the pin, place it in the strut, push back, and lift up. We're then able to remove the strut and the spring. The next thing we want to remove is the ejector. The ejector pin is unique in that you have to push it from the inside out. It has a little bit of a counter bore on it. So we get that removed. There is a spring here at the back of the ejector, so I am keeping pressure on it to keep the ejector from flying out on me. We can then remove the ejector. The ejector spring can also be a little problematic if you have a very filthy trigger pack. What I would recommend if the spring doesn't come out with ease, instead of pulling on it and trying to rip it out, rotate a little bit or try a little bit of CLP or mineral spirits to try to remove any gunk buildup that's not allowing the spring to come out. You shouldn't pull on a spring because you can overstress it and then you can have problems later with that spring. So be delicate. The next thing that we're going to do differs from the normal HK instruction manual. We're going to go ahead and remove the hammer catch next. We'll use the Annie's Arms tool. We flip the trigger pack upside down. With the center portion towards the trigger, it's going to go between the two wires on the elbow spring. We insert it so it straddles the catch. Take the small end of our pin and push out the axle. We can then pull the hammer catch out and maintain control. The next part we'll remove is the hammer. Again, using our pin, we'll push the hammer axle out, and we can then pull our hammer out. The release lever's next. It pivots on a little boss in the trigger housing. So you can see how that comes in and comes out. Give it a little wiggle and it'll pop right out. The next thing to take apart is the trigger and the sear. The best way I found to do this is to use the large end of the pin. I kind of rest it in the trigger housing with the small end down on the workbench. I push down to lift the spring up, and I use my finger to then move the spring over. And with a little control and a little delicateness, you can remove that spring or release the pressure on that spring. Again, small end of the pin, and we will push the trigger axle out. We then have the trigger sear, trigger return spring, trigger and a disassembled housing. In the housing, there's really only two pin diameters. There's the large pin, which goes for the hammer, and these two small pins for the trigger and the hammer catch are both the same size. So you don't have to worry about switching pins up or keeping track of which one goes where. At this point in your trigger pack, if it were the mill surplus and completely filthy, you could use your favorite solvents and CLP to give it a clean and to lubricate everything. The blue/green grease that you see on these components is the industrial grease that we also sell on our website. It is an industrial grease, but I've found that it has an excellent chemistry and formulation for firearms. I've been using it for the last year in all of my personal guns. It has excellent corrosion protection, lubrication, solid lubricants, excellent shear stability, and isn't going to dry or harden. Again, I've used it in a lot of stuff, and I've really become a huge fan of grease for lubricating firearms. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you want to buy the tool or buy any of the firearms grease, you can do so at our website, anniesarms.com. Thanks again for watching. Bye.